Hello, welcome to the self-learning platform by Dr. Sushma Singh. Today we start Unit 2, Comparative Approaches and Methods, Systems, Structural Functional and Public Policy. We start with topic David Easton's conceptual framework theory. Carl Menahem offered systematic sociology in his study of society. Following him, Charles Marion wrote about systematic politics. This search for a systematic interpretation of society and polity, whereas continued by David Easton in his application of general systems theory to the study of political systems. The following discussion will include first, a statement of Easton's conceptual framework. Second, influences shaping Easton's approach. Third, application of his ideas. And lastly, a critique of Easton's methodology. Now, the first one is David Easton's conceptual framework. Easton's conceptual framework evolved in three phases. The first phase is represented by the political system published in 1953. The second and third phases are represented by a framework of political analysis and a system analysis of political life, both published in 1965. One after another. His conceptual framework was based on four assumptions. First, the empirical search for knowledge requires the construction of systematic theory, that is, the highest order of generalization. Second, political scientists must view the political system as a whole rather than concentrate on solutions for particular problems. They must combine factual knowledge and empirical data. Third, research on the political system draws from psychological data and situational data, that is, both by personalities and motivations of the participants, and the influences emanating from the natural and social environment. The fourth, public life is generally in a condition of disequilibrium, a counter tendency to equilibrium which is never realized in practice. Easton rejected the concept of the state by referring to confusion and variety of its meanings. He regarded power as a significant concept which shapes and carries out authoritative politics in society. It rests on the ability to influence actions of others. A policy, therefore, consists of a web of decisions and actions that allocate values. The concepts of power, authority, decision making, and policy are important in Easton's concept of political life as the authoritative allocations of values for a society. He identified the following attributes of political system: units and boundaries, inputs and outputs, differentiations within a system, and integration within a system. Now let us understand the Easton's diagram of a political system. The diagram points out that for the purpose of analysis, the use of system permits the separation of political life from the rest of society. The units of the political system are political actions. Inputs in the form of demands and supports feed the political system. Demands come from the environment or arise within the system itself. Demands become issues which are dealt through the recognized channels in the system. Supports are actions or orientations promoting or resisting the political system. Outputs emerge from the political system in the form of binding decisions and policy actions. These decisions and actions are feedback into the environment by satisfying the demands of some members of the system. They are in turn generate support for the system. Dissatisfaction may have negative results in the form of new demands on the system. In his second phase, Easton elaborated his earlier framework and argued that the political system is a set of interactions abstracted from the totality of social behavior through which values are authoritatively allocated for a society. He discussed the persistence and dynamics of systems. Political systems persist in times of change. They can face pressure and stress. They have the capacity to survive conflict. In his third phase, Easton attempted the construction of a general theory and explained why the system persists in the face of frequent and constant crises. In this, he studied responses to the stresses placed on the system and discussed outputs as regulators of specific support. He thus hoped to provide a foundation for empirical investigation. Easton claims that his political analysis is dynamic rather than static, and his concept of system persistence permits gradual structural changes unless they head towards a complete disintegration of the rule making mechanisms. System theory cannot explain revolutionary changes. Now, the next point is influences shaping Easton's approach. According to Mackenzie, Easton was caught up in a movement which he did not originate, and there is no Eastonian theory as such. He was indebted to a tradition of 40 years which began with Charles Merriam, George Catlin, Harland Laswell, and others. Like him, he believed that attention to legal institutions, parties, and pressure groups was outmoded, and political science should theorize about the political system as a whole. Easton also looked at Talcott Parsons, who had derived from Weber an action frame of reference which could be applied to macro theory in the social science. Talcott Parsons formulated generalization about the social system, but according to David Easton, he questioned the validity of political theory. This meant that his influence on Easton's approach was limited. There are occasional references in Easton's work to the anthropologist Lynn Sonke, and Radcliffe Brown, as well as to the sociologists Martin and Levy. But Easton also argued that structural analysis, so called, is not a theory but a concept instinct to all scientific research. Indeed, it is fundamentally devoid of theoretical content. The works on social psychology influenced Easton as decision making is an element in his conceptual framework for political analysis. Easton's approach was also influenced by macroeconomic conceptions. William Michel said that Easton's concept of allocation of resembled theories of distribution and the allocation of resources in economics, and particularly neoclassical theory. From economics, David Easton borrowed such notions as scarcity, allocation, competition, maximization, homeostatic equilibrium, functional interdependence, self regulation, goal seeking, and feedback. Eastern systems approach was also derived from physical and life sciences. Thus, he joined the interdisciplinary tradition of seeking an understanding of the whole system. Erwin Lizole concluded. The most consistent as well as most general paradigm available today to the inquiring mind is the system paradigm. The system's psychological paradigm takes man as one specific species of concentrate and actual system embedded in the encompassing natural hierarchies of likewise concentrate and actual physical, biological, and social systems. Easton has been influenced by a new communication science, and his input output framework is closer to the communications model of Carl Deutsch. Both believe that the political system has feedback mechanisms which are capable of transmitting information of a positive or negative kind to the system. Thus, a particular state of equilibrium may change without disturbing the political identity of the system as a whole. Next point is applications of systems analysis. Laszlo Lavin and Mulsam expressed his anxiety about seeking solutions to the problems faced by the post-industrial societies. Following Easton, their goal was to plan for and to control the system so as to perform in a socially good way. Mallord wanted to use the system analysis and simulation as he thinks that simulation is a good technique for exploring the future, for understanding the impact of proposed action, and for permitting us to solve many problems facing mankind. Many writers, such as Abrahamson and Inglehurst, Teono, and Ostrowski, analyzed national political systems by measuring relevant empirical data. Other significant applications of systems approach are found in the works of Herbert Spiro, Carl Deutsch, and Morton Kaplan. They either follow Easton's conceptual scheme or a parallel framework, Spiro works directly related to the comparative politics. Kaplan's focus on the international politics. Carl Dietrich is equally concerned with both fields. Spiro defined a political system as a community that processes issues. These issues relate to problems, needs, and goals about which consensus or dissections may exist. Carl Deutsch viewed politics as the steering or manipulations of human behavior. He evolved a system based on the study of communications and control points of decision, feedback, and follow path. Now we want to wind up this lecture. Thank you so much for your attention.